Hey guys, um, I've been avoiding doing this and I am just gonna talk and see what comes out. And what I've been avoiding is starting this podcast, starting talking about in the kink of things. And part of it was because in my mind I thought this had to be a certain way, it had to be strictly about kink, BDSM, sexuality, taboo subjects. And the more I felt into it, it's really not about just that. It's also about anything that is not normal, because kink is a deviation of a straight line. Something is out of the norm. And for me, all those things are so closely tied to my soul journey, to divine embodiment, to spirituality, to just being me, fully present in this human experience, that I can't leave those things out. Also, the relationships we have with other people, how we interact, how we talk to each other, how we share, what struggles we have, what things we celebrate, what how we live life, and how we embrace being outside of the box. And I think that's really what I wanted to share and talk about, and bring some people in and talk about some of their experiences in their lives, how they handle things that are out of the norm in their personal life, in their sexuality, in anything and everything that they want to talk about. And I do have a couple people who already offered to come on and talk to us all, so that will be exciting. But I figured I'd do this first one myself, because this is about my perspective on this journey of self-discovery, of self-exploration, of expandedness, of what is considered okay to talk about, to share. I grew up in Germany for my first part of my childhood. I was born there. And it was a really interesting experience because there's no taboo around nakedness. In the family, out in the world, it's just, this, you're not wearing clothes, so what? It doesn't matter. Everybody has the same bits. They might look a little different, but it's all fine. Then I moved to Canada with my family when I was 12, and things were very different. People were a lot more like, don't you dare show anything outside of, a bikini, but don't change in front of people. Like, don't let anybody see you changing. Uh, Even the same sex, we're all hiding from each other. We don't want to change in front of each other. We want to go in a cubicle and change. And this was very strange to my younger self. It still is strange. I do notice that I've taken on some of those habits because I was feeling like I needed to be conscientious of not making other people uncomfortable by just changing randomly. Um, so I do notice the effects even on myself. But with that, the other side of that is that the German culture doesn't talk openly about sex necessarily. The wild about it, like once you get to a certain age, you become an adult, it's like the parties, the sex stores, like it's insane. At least to my mind, I'm just like, how do you go from like prim and proper and um, very stoic, work hard, Germans to play like crazy, do all these things that you're like, wow, how would anybody actually come up with that? Um, some of it isn't for me, some of it I enjoy. I love playing with rope for some reason. I love the feeling of the restriction in movement and mobility and the art form of it, the creativity of it as well, and the versatility. But I digress. And then the Canadian side, it's like sex is kind of like hidden, taboo in between, but everybody talks about it in a way. Uh, so it's, you don't see it, but it gets talked about all the time. Fuck, swear word happens everywhere. I mean, one part of my high school, that was like every second word from this group of kids coming out of their mouths. So it's really interesting how sexuality gets portrayed to the next generations or gets hidden from the next generations. And then you kind of get this awakening when you're an adult. I remember when I came out to my parents about my interest in kink and rope play and these unusual forms of sexuality. And the first thing out of my mother's mouth was like, oh, to my father, go get that catalog that you had saved. And it was a sex catalog. And my mom asked my dad to give me his sex catalog. It was just such a mind bend at the time. I think it was like in my late 20s, early 30s. I guess I was a late bloomer. I don't know. I'm slow sometimes. It's okay. I blossom all the prettier for it. But I digress. It's such a vast topic. And it's so diverse because anything and everything can be considered a kink because it's our perception around the subject or an act or a movement or a form of dress or an interaction that makes it kinky or not. And this is, I think, where in my mind I thought it had to look a certain way, where in reality this is just a way to talk about a subject that gets talked about but not necessarily connected to everyday life or to spirituality or to just being a part of your identity. And I know for myself, I first learned that I enjoyed things that weren't necessarily normal actually when I was still a child. Um, I don't know, I don't remember the exact age. It was before 12 and 11, maybe anywhere between 8, 9, 10. I don't remember exactly, but the memory of the event is very vivid. And it wasn't a abusive situation. It was me playing with my friends at the time, and I was playing with two boys who were just a year too older than me, and we were all fully dressed, and we were pretending that I was chained down, and so I couldn't move, and nothing was holding me. This was all in our minds. And one of them was sticking things in my vagina. Even we were fully dressed, nothing happened. And that imagery brought me pleasure, brought me joy. I was just so happy to play pretend like that. And then the confusing part was when the other boy got up and left because they hated it. So that was my first personal experience of this. And then that kind of got put in the closet because I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand. And I haven't brought that out again until I was maybe somewhere in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s. So quite a long time. And it was friends of mine again in Canada this time. This originally was in Germany, this was in Canada. And they invited me to go to a sex show. And it was really funny. They were so lovely people. And they're like, there's this, they explained it all to me. They said there's like this dungeon part where they do like ropes and flogging and things, but you don't have to go in there if you don't want to. And we'll meet you at like 7 or 6 or something. And I didn't tell them that I was really interested in dungeon. So I actually bought a weekend pass, and I showed up when they first opened because my friend weren't going to be there for a couple more hours. So I actually went in by myself ahead of time and looked through the dungeon and everything. Then met up with my friends, walked through the rest of the show with them. It's basically a fair conference type of deal with lots of booths and lots of vendors, and they have a stage with some entertainment and speaking engagement in another space. So basically traditional conference style. And I was just so fascinated because part of me was like, I need to know how to do this. Like, this is part of what I need to do. And I was like, I didn't talk at the time. I was like Madame Wallflower, observing everything and keeping everything to myself. And this amount of talking that I do here, it was just unheard of for that period of my life. So I got talking to some people. I did end up staying with a stranger overnight. Not the smartest idea, nothing bad necessarily happened, but there was a little bit of boundary crossing at one point where I'm like, this is sketchy, but I survived, it's all good. Went back the next day, hung out all day pretty much in the space, and then they had an after party at the local BDSM club. So I went. Why wouldn't I? And ended up engaging with some people, learning about play, having my first flogging experience, or whipping experience. And I still, excuse me, carry that memory within me of like, that was such a epiphany, an awakening of like, wow, this is an experience I can have. And it wasn't necessarily a domination thing, it was the experience of sensation, of unexpected little flicks randomly over my body, and tingling just talking about it. And I felt like a way I'd never felt before. And I so crave those kinds of experiences. And it can be challenging, at least for myself, because it's such a unique area of expertise. I mean, we all probably have experienced a play with sensation play. Even, with a feather, a tickling, or a stroking. Like, this is all sensation play. It's just you're creating sensations for the other person and you're playing. There's no necessary outcome. You're doing certain things. With the kink stuff, it's just, or the BDSM, it just is a little bit more towards the edges. There's extremes, just like anything else. A level of hug can be to huge extremes. That's why you have a barely there air hug to a bear hug where your life is getting squeezed out of you. They're all hugs, but you have a huge spectrum of how can that be delivered and how can that be received. And the same as happens with sensation play. From using your hands to impact play to toys or tools, from anything that is sharp to blunt to consistent to short and snappy. There's just such a large variety. Your imagination is your limit, really. And then your perception of how you perceive a sensation is what you decide. Is this a pleasurable sensation? Is this a painful sensation? Is this a positive sensation? Is this negative? Is this something I want more of? Is this something I want less of? Is this something I want just a little less intensity? Do I want more intensity? What stage am I in? Because if you are aroused, you're definitely feeling less pain and you can take more impact. If you are just had a really hard day, your adrenaline's used up, just a little touch can be too much. So there's all such a range of emotions, and how we are, where we show up in that moment changes all the time. And then there's something called training, where you can associate a sensation, an act, a smell, a sight, any form of sensory import with something else. I think it's called like Pavlovian effect or something like that. It's a famous scientist who did a bunch of studies. But we can do this with the kink too. So if I, for myself, have practiced, so to speak, and I can tie certain sensations to arousal, to sexual arousal. And if I practice that, then receiving just that sensation can trigger sexual arousal in my body on a physical level, because my body associates that, whether it's an impact play, a smell, a certain position, whatever it is you want to pick on. Some people it's shoes, who knows, whatever you want. You can couple that with sexual arousal. You can even use your breath. A certain breathing pattern can help create that. When you start looking into Tantra, Kundalini awakenings, a lot of these things, they're actually using breathing patterns to create that kind of energetic arousal. So it's being used in a lot of different places. You can use the breath to lessen the impact of pain. This is used in a lot of different ways. The military use it, natural birth practices use the breath a lot. Martial arts, that's a lot of my background, is how I learned about breath training is originally through the martial arts. And then I expanded it through spirituality, sexuality, tantra, and all these things. But there's such a big, expansive spectrum of things around us. And it's just, I want to share that. I want to encourage people to explore within themselves, with themselves. If they don't have a partner, like, how often do you caress your own skin, even your face, your hands, you know, your body? How often do you smile at yourself, gaze into your own eyes, have a conversation with just you and yourself? How often you just appreciate who you are? All of it. The crazy, the mundane, the anything and everything. I don't even know if anybody's gonna watch this. If anybody's gonna listen to me talk about kink, randomness, my experience, how this is affecting me in my life. I'm actually feeling like I'm gonna start crying because I am talking about this. I am letting this out. I am speaking about something that is such a core part of my being. And while I engage and play with myself and my partner on a certain level, there's a difference between someone who does it because the other person enjoys it and someone who does it because they love it themselves. And that energetic coming together is just, it's like being on drugs. In a way you are. You're on your own endorphins and, you know, the energy flowing. It's just feels so amazing. It can be so magical. And I often use it to do things in the spiritual, energetic planes. Like straightening out energy grids on our planet or bringing protection to an area. So for me, this is also tied into energy work, where I use the path through those experiences, building that energy, bringing it up into my body, into my sphere, but then also taking it beyond. And this is where I think for myself it may be my unique medicine, is where I am cultivating a strong conduit, because I find for myself in this body of a woman, which, just as a side note, for the longest time I identified as male. So I was not comfortable being in this physical form. I ignored it. It was not me. I looked in the mirror, I got surprised. I'm like, who's this hot babe? Like, I want to make out with her, but that was me. So I have to laugh at myself. The experience I've had through my life, there's things I've done or how I handled things or explored, and it's comedy. And we enjoy that. We enjoy the comedy of it. But I digress. This is me, by the way. I jump around on things. I go from here to there to there. I do loop things back around, but I do go on side kinks all the time. So, perfect for a podcast, right? In the kink of things. But yeah, I am so looking forward to seeing where this exploration leads, where this goes. If you have something you're interested in, you want to learn about, you want me to find somebody to talk about, when I hear about my experience around something or what I have experienced around something, leave a comment, let me know, and I will see what resonates and follow up on that. I am so in love with being able to share and talk and have just this minimal input. I don't do any editing. There's whatever happens, happens. Whatever pauses are there, whatever background noise, it's gonna be there. This is me, authentic. This is me, uncut. This is me being my best version of my now. I definitely see myself growing throughout this, getting more confident in sharing and diving deep into some of these subjects. And I do hope that whoever is still here and listening, first of all, thank you. So much gratitude for you supporting me in my journey of this exploration and sharing and expansion. And so much love for you all, so much gratitude and joy. I wish you so much joy and happiness and creativity and expansion in your life. I'm just overflowing right now, also for myself, because I'm doing it. I did it. I did my first one. It's just shy of half an hour. This is what it's gonna be. And love y'all. Looking forward to the next one. Let me know if you want to know more. Bye for now.